Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Thursday, June 13th. LA Galaxy getting ready to face off against Sporting Kansas City as they come back from their 14 days off. Galaxy getting back quickly into the swing of things. Quick week this week. You have a Saturday game, a Wednesday game, 3-game week, right back into the swing of things. We're going to talk about injury updates, let you know who's going to be available, talk about the Rose Bowl, talk about Leagues Cup, talk about the second half and some of the scheduling stuff that's going on here. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about before we get you ready for the Sporting Kansas City game coming up on Saturday night. To help me do it, we are so stoked to have him back. He's dressed way nicer than me. He makes me feel inadequate at every turn. Here he is. It's Alex El Nino Ruiz. Alex, how you doing, buddy?
I am super delighted to be back and announce I'm running for president. Just kidding. I'm here to talk soccer, LA Galaxy soccer. Couldn't be more pumped.
Oh man, I was like, you running for class president? Is that what it is? ASB class president? You gonna try that out?
Yeah, I feel like Kevin Baxter was here. He would tell me that. Usually he always tells me whenever I'm at the press box, hey, do your parents know you're here?
Yeah,
you stole the car? Yeah, every time he tells me that. So
You know, let me tell you, Kevin got recognized today. So Kevin, one of our listeners, is a delivery driver, dropped something off at the Panda's house today, and Panda went out to make sure that he knew that he could grab, the Panda being the nice guy that he is, he has bottles of water and snacks out there for the delivery drivers whenever they're coming through. He was like, hey, do you do this? And he goes, you're Kevin Panda Baxter, that type of thing. So Kevin had to call me right away. His wife was like, I can't believe it, Josh. This is like twice in 1 week that he's been recognized. I said, that is in no way related to his popularity. I just want you to know. Complete coincidence.
He just appears out of thin air sometimes.
That's exactly what it is. So, so he was feeling pretty good. And I think you're the next one to have happen. Somebody will deliver something to your house, and they will be like, I know who you are. You're Alex Ruiz. It's coming.
I remember. I think you had the Hammer on here. I think when we did the live podcast, you were saying that, I was like, peeing my pants or something like that it was happening.
Yeah.
That may or may not be true. We'll never know.
I
will say it is interesting now, kind of getting a bit more recognized, and and I love it. I love talking to all the LA Galaxy fans. Love talking soccer. It's nice, and look, we get to do it again today, and I think it feels like it's been forever since the last LA Galaxy match.
100%. By the way, Gary Wynn's comment of the show so far. Alex came back from a quinceañera. So there it is. Good. Glad we got that.
Quinceañera.
Yeah. Even better. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the LA Galaxy as they get ready to take on Sporting Kansas City. This is it feels, and you and I were saying, it feels like we're only 10 games into the season, and really we're halfway through. So it's 17 games. It feels like the Galaxy have been off for a month. They've only been off for not even 2 weeks, because they technically played on the 14th day. It's like 13 days between games whenever everything is set. They had 1 weekend off. That was about it. But with all the games coming so rapidly and everything that was happening, it does feel like everything was condensed, Alex. It feels like everything's on top of each other. And then all of a sudden it's like you catch your breath, you get a little break, and now they're right back into it. I know there was Greg Vanney had his media availability today, so he was talking a little bit about it. He's being asked questions about the first half. So what do we make of this first half? Is it I know people want to do grades. Let's not do grades. Let's say, was it a successful first half? Was it not a successful first half? Where do they need to go? What have you seen in the first half?
Yeah, I think it's going to be successful, I think, no matter what, because you're always going to compare it to how it was last year. And last year was a complete mess. Last year was all over the place. Now that they're fourth in the Western Conference, you got players that look like they can elevate the ceiling of the team as the season goes on. It feels like there's a lot more that this team can grow on compared to the team last year, right? You had a lot older players and older DPs you had to depend on. Now you got more younger in their prime players that are performing pretty well. I mean, we have seen Gabriel Peck kind of take a leap every single game, I think. Joseph Painsil, I think, has also been really consistent. We're seeing Joveljic actually score goals. We're seeing Ricky Puig play at an MVP level in the last couple of weeks.
Right.
So, yeah, I think right now, judging the first half of the season has to be a success. Can they be better? Of course they can. But, I mean, it's still a success nonetheless because you're always going to compare this first half of the season to how last year ended. And obviously last year was really bad. So it's always going to be a successful start of the first half no matter what lens you look at.
Greg Vanny was asked a question about what he liked from the first half, what he didn't like. Damian Calhoun was out there asking. And it was interesting to hear him sort of say, I think, we played well whenever we were not improvising, whenever we played within the system. It almost, if you listen to what Greg said, you would almost think, Alex, that he's like, I want creativity out of it. But that's not, he has creativity built into that system. So that's not what he's saying. He's saying that when we play an established way, when we know how to play the way that we do play, and play it well, we're a good team. We make teams nervous whenever we play in our system. Whenever we're not doing that, whenever we're playing outside the system, they're susceptible to being countered up the middle. They're susceptible to being pressured through the middle or even, beat through the back line. So, I think for Vanny, he says, I want us to understand our identity a little bit more. At least that's what I get. I want us to understand what we're good at and then do what we're good at. That's what I'm taking from a lot of what he said, which is, when we play well, this is what we do. When we don't play well, this is what we do. Let's do the things that make us play well, because when they do, we've seen this LA Galaxy team run over basically any team that they've wanted to. I know there's sort of a misnomer that the Galaxy play down to the level of the teams that they sort of play against. And so whenever you see poor teams like against Austin, whenever they played Austin, although Austin's now up in that Western Conference, top. But when you look at Chicago, you have Sporting Kansas City coming in. You look at two of those losses. By the way, Miguel Berry started two of those games. Just of the two worst games the Galaxy have played, Miguel Berry was the starter at striker for both of them. Not saying they're related, but they definitely are. But just looking at that, but this is the LA Galaxy. This is what we're seeing, is that they can play and beat anybody in this league. The juggernaut that is developing in the Western Conference is Real Salt Lake, and we're going to get to see that game very soon. That's coming. Yeah. Galaxy will travel to RSL, but I don't think that the Galaxy are nervous about playing Real Salt Lake, and I don't think Real Salt Lake is nervous about playing the Galaxy. I think that the Galaxy can play with any team in the Western Conference and possibly within the league right now. And if we're looking at that versus last year, I think that you have to say successful season so far.
Yeah, I mean, this team has some swagger to it compared to last year. Like, I think you can see that on the pitch, off the pitch as well. I mean, the entire organization, I think, has kind of just evolved into finding that, the old kind of touch of the old LA Galaxy, right? Where you're kind of seeing them, be a bit more structured, both on and off the field. We're kind of seeing, just everything around the club just being a much better move and just be a much more improvement and a much needed evolution over the last 5 years. And I think that's something you can't take away. And I think that this first half of the season showed that in all aspects.
Yeah, it feels that way. By the way, Max $10 super chat, just showing some support. Since you guys have helped make me a huge Galaxy fan, McWheeleasy from the Discord, keep being great. Go G's on Saturday. I listen to the show after it's not live, so I'll see you later. I like the people who drop in and then they're like, no, I can't watch it live. I gotta catch it later. This is important, commute time for me. I don't want to waste that type of thing. So I appreciate that. Thank
that's sometimes me on for you guys' Monday shows. Usually I'll listen to it like during the gym, and whenever I hear your voice, I just think to myself, I gotta do an extra rep. I do it for Josh.
Yeah, you ready? You just going? You need the soothing voice from Kevin Baxter to get you up, another mile on the treadmill.
No comment.
No. So, I mean, we look at the LA Galaxy. I will say this. I went and looked, and I was sort of like, okay, so where do the Galaxy sit in goals for? Where do the Galaxy sit goals against? Where are the Galaxy in goal differential overall? And, there's people here, and I sometimes think that there's too much PTSD from last season for sure for Galaxy fans who are like, no, the Galaxy are horrible. I can prove it. I can show you the whole deal. The Galaxy right now, 4th in goals for. Clearly, their strongest side is on the offensive side of things. Greg Vanney even mentioned that today. The offense is really where they've gotten a lot of things going. They've allowed the 11th most goals against, right in the 10th, 11th, depending on ties, how it all goes against goals against. But they have the 8th best goal differential. So they're within the upper third of goals for and goal differential, but they're in the bottom third basically whenever you look at where they sit on goals against. I think that's okay. I don't, the defense doesn't have to be perfect, and I'll say it, since the Charlotte game, I thought the Galaxy had played a lot better defense. So I think things have really calmed down on the defensive side, and the numbers, whenever we project those out, actually show that as well, showing the Galaxy giving up 50 goals. If they gave up 50 goals this year, that would be 17 goals better than they did last year. I mean, that's a huge improvement to what they did. I know Vanney wants to get it closer probably to 40, but that's where we're looking at right now, is right around 50. If they can get into that 40 place, they are a really good team. 40 to 45 goals in the season, a little over 1 point something per game. That's not the end of the world. It's not where they need it. It would be very good, especially knowing that their offense is so high powered. So, I mean, what do you think of the defense? Is the defense as bad as everybody thinks it is, or as the numbers sometimes say, or is there some light at the end of that tunnel?
Yeah, I think there was a good stretch, maybe 5-6 games ago, right, where we're seeing the defensive play during games, right, during the run of play. We've seen teams kind of carve up the LA Galaxy defense. And during, I think, the first 5 games, we really didn't see that. It was more kind of just mistakes on the LA Galaxy's end, mistakes during set pieces. But during those, I think, 4 or 5 games, following the Austin loss, you kind of saw the LA Galaxy defense kind of decline a little bit. But in these last couple of games, and like you mentioned, Josh, since that Charlotte game, I think they've been a lot better during the run of play. Obviously, set pieces have kind of, been here or there. I think Greg Vanney today mentioned he thinks they're, done better at defending those compared to the first 5-6 games of the year. Yeah. But yeah, this defense, it's all about kind of, can they take that next step together? I mean, you got Julian Alde, who's, been improving game by game. He's been a good player. Mickey Yamane has been...
I was going to say, let me interrupt, but on Alde, do you think, possibly one of the best defenders this year for the LA Galaxy? Can you put him as the best defender this year? He might be on the top of my list. If you're talking about defensive player of the year so far, Julian Alde might be on my list. What say you?
Yeah, I think Julian Alde does... everything really well. Looking at the stats and the eye test, that guy is always running. He seems to do really good when it comes to kind of closing out those crosses, closing out those spaces. We've kind of seen him become a lot more physical as well. And look, the kid takes a battering every single game. He's always on the floor for some reason, always gets fouled. Good on both ends of the ball. And yeah, if we were voting right now for Defensive Player of the Year for the LA Galaxy, Julian Alde is definitely, number 1 on my list. I think number 2 is really up in the air. But yeah, he's been like stellar at left back, and I think right now he's one of the more underrated players within Major League Soccer.
You're going to mention Mickey Yamane. For me, might be 2 whenever we're looking at what it is, which is interesting to see the LA Galaxy's outside backs really be a difference maker this year. Perhaps they weren't that last year. Outside of Caligari, by the way, and the Galaxy would have loved to have him back if he was not injured. I really think that would have been a solid pickup, but look what they've done. I think the big thing with Julian Alde for me is looking at the way they went out and got a young guy. They put some faith in him. They trusted him. And now they're reaping the rewards for last year, right? And so a lot of times when we look at what they're doing, when we look at somebody like Gabriel Peck, we're looking at the progression. We're seeing the progression. Things are getting better. But let's think about what happens next year, because really that's what it seems like everything is setting up for too. And I'm generally not everything's set up for next year type of guy. I'm very much like, teams are made to win like now, and if they have some longevity to them, that's okay too. And I think the Galaxy are sort of set up that way. I don't think there's anybody in the Western Conference that should worry the LA Galaxy right now. Real Salt Lake is probably the biggest, best team in the Western Conference right now. That's one team. And I don't think they're necessarily should be that concerned about it. We'll see a really good test whenever they go and play Real Salt Lake and just understand what that game might look like at altitude, traveling, all that fun stuff, right? It's a tough week to sort of get through. That being said, I think the LA Galaxy are set up whenever you look at somebody like Julian Ale, whenever you look at Miki Amane, who can come back another year. What are they going to do at center back is certainly a question mark right now for next year. But this year, Maya Yoshida, with Cáceres back there as well, Martin Cáceres back there. Garces played in a Galaxy 2 game. I know there were people who were saying that the world was over because Garces didn't look that good, but he hasn't played in a couple months, and that's one of the reasons.
Yeah,
they put
that's
him
one
down
of the
there.
things Greg Vanney kind of talked about today, saying, look, they haven't been able to get a lot of quality training time because of obviously these 3-game weeks, right? You can't really have that time to really get on the pitch for a while and train together. So it's been hard to kind of get him on the pitch, get acclimated to Greg Vanney's system. And yeah, he was all right during Ventura County FC's game. Was good in possession except one moment where he kind of gave the ball away, and then that led to a goal. But aside from that, I mean, it's just all about kind of building his match sharpness, getting used to how the club wants to play. Look, he's got a lot of physical gifts. He's got, great recovery speed. I think he's going to be an asset when it comes to defending those aerial duels. But yeah, it's just about how can you integrate him. You don't want to, kind of just rush him out there and leave him, there to kind of fend off him for himself. But yeah, if you can get him in slowly, get him used to everything, I think that's going to be a lot better for his confidence. And that's what defenders need. They need that confidence to be able to know that they're going to stop the ball. They're going to be able to stop the attackers going at them. And if the Galaxy can get confidence in their back line, then they can take that next level.
Well, it's interesting because as we look at the LA Galaxy roster and we sort of look around everything that's going on, we have seen that the LA Galaxy got rid of 2 players. We mentioned them. We had Marcus Verkranis, who went off to Australia, holds an Australian passport, and Greg Vanney was mentioning today how it was important that it would also give him a chance, one, to develop in that pro environment there, but also get them in front of that Australian national team, right? So, Verkranis eligible to play for that Australian national team, so he could also be put into places there. 25 players right now on the roster. Daniel Aguirre, the other player that went away. When we look at what the LA Galaxy have shed, Alex, and I went through and I put my list together and I've been sort of slowly keeping track of everything. The Galaxy right now have basically shed 17 players from starting last year through this year, right? 17 players have gone. They've shed $16.7 million in salary. And listen, the last 2 weren't that much, but it all adds up whenever you look at this. Just going back over, you had Javier Hernandez, you had Douglas Costa, you had Lucas Caligari, Michael Barrios, Uri Rosell was on there, Tyler Boyd. Remember everybody was upset Tyler Boyd left? Is anybody upset that Tyler Boyd? I mean, listen, I like the guy. I think he's really great. I think if you could have kept him as a depth piece, that would have been awesome, but you weren't going to keep him as a depth piece. That was sort of the whole idea. So, but Tyler Boyd going away. Jonathan Klinsmann, Billy Sharp, Kelvin Leardam, Tony Alfaro, Adam Saldana, Raheem Edwards, Preston Judd, Chris Mavinga, Jonathan Bond, Daniel Aguirre, and Marcus Verkranis. Those are the players. $16.7 million the Galaxy have shed. They currently have a roster of about $17.658 million. Whenever you look at it, 25 total players in there. Greg Vanney asked about losing some players, getting some players, whether that was about acquisitions coming in, and obviously he said the right thing, which was we're moving guys and we should be able to get some guys back. I mean, does it feel like they're setting themselves up for this Marco Royce chance? And if it's not Royce, then it's somebody else?
Yeah, it definitely feels like you want to give yourself options in the summer transfer window. I mean, look, after the Euros, after Copa America, I think you'll see players more willing to move to different clubs, right? I mean, obviously these international tournaments is what's on the mind of a lot of these players. And you saw that with Joseph Paintsville, right? He was with AFCON in the winter when the LA Galaxy tried to get him. Right after that tournament, they were able to convince him to come to the LA Galaxy, be part of this project. And I think Marco Royce, whether that happens or not, great option. You always want to add quality players and players who just, always are going to make your team better. If that's not the case, then you have the flexibility to have a U22 player, someone who maybe shines at one of these tournaments, right? Somebody who can maybe be the future at some other positions as well. So I think to be able to move on from Aguirre, get something out of him. He'd been a great utility piece. And you were able to get something out of him. I mean, that's a phenomenal move. For Kranis, I didn't think he had a future at the club, to be honest. I mean, they already invested.
It kind of sounded like that whenever Greg was talking today, too. It was sort of like, hey, he didn't make it. He didn't break into the first team. And so, read between the lines, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'd had talks with Greg about for Kranis before, and he never very much seemed convinced that he could be able to make the leap to the first team. But yeah, I mean, you were able to move on from him. And again, we're seeing that they've also added to the center back position in Emilio Garces. So they made an investment there. But yeah, you always want to add some flexibility in case something happens. And look, if this team can be able to get on a roll and, really start to put themselves in the conversation of, hey, we can, be a dark horse in the MLS Cup playoffs. We can, pull up an upset here and there to make it to the MLS Cup final. Because right now they're not contenders. I don't think anybody thinks they're contenders for MLS Cup just yet. But, if they start to get to the level and you add another player, maybe we can have that conversation. But that's way down the line, months down the line. But yeah, you want to leave that flexibility in there. And I think Will Kuntz has done a really amazing job with the roster construction of this team.
When you look at Aguirre, when you look at Verkranis, when you look at the money that they got for Aguirre and you add all that up, the Galaxy got $522,613 in total gains, which means, the transfer and the salary and everything. So that's money. They're creating money. And apparently they're going to need it.
And that's all profit too.
All profit. That's right. That's 100%. I think we talked about Aguirre on Monday's show because that transfer had finally been announced but seeing a guy go from a walk on to Galaxy 2 and then make it all the way to the first team and then get consistent minutes, not starting minutes, but consistent minutes as a backup is such a huge success story for the LA Galaxy and everything nobody else I think has ever come even close to sort of pulling that off. What Daniel Aguirre has with the LA Galaxy. So interesting to see him progress through everything and really get there. So we have that. We have those pieces. Now another piece that's been up in the air, and I know Mark Delgado got asked about this today, was Mark Delgado. This was a tweet from you, which is nice to have you on here. We'll just read your tweets instead of you saying it. But Mark Delgado says he hopes to stay with the LA Galaxy. His contract is up after the season. Does have a club option for 2025, but has the door open for other opportunities. Delgado has a Mexican passport. He states he's focused on bringing another MLS Cup for LA. The stuff that we had talked about, and you and I talked about before we got on here, is that Delgado's future isn't up to him right now. The Delgado's future is up to the LA Galaxy. The Galaxy have an option on him. That option does not need to be exercised until like the middle of December. So the Galaxy have lots of time. Now, if they decide they're not going to bring him back, then Delgado has some options to him. And the Galaxy may tell him now, hey, we're not going to bring you back. We're not going to extend you. So you can go out and you can start look, because whenever it's over at the option, deadline, we're going to waive your option and you're going to be a free agent, and however that works, right? So that's one of those things that we have to watch, because Alex, there is value in Mark Delgado, and whether Mark Delgado has, and by the way, that may mean value for Mark Delgado outside of Major League Soccer, as you alluded to with the Mexican passport.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of Liga MX clubs have on their radar, players outside of Mexico that have Mexican passports. Obviously, kind of like MLS, they do have like a domestic league rule where they're more incentivized to add domestic players. So Delgado having the Mexican passport, I think he just got it within the last year or so. So very much new on that radar. But yeah, look, he's a player that always gets talked about very highly. A guy who covers so much ground, does all the little things right. We always call him, such an underrated player. And look, teams love players like that. They love being able to snap up players like that. And Delgado's still, within, his prime, late prime at 27 or 28. So he can still play at this level for a while. And I think today he made it clear, look, he wants to stay in LA. He wants to, be part of this project. Obviously, he and Vanny go way back from Chivas USA days, Toronto days, now here in LA. But yeah, if the door opens for an opportunity, down in Mexico, I'm pretty sure he'll be able to take that if that's, the best option as well. I mean, he did mention today he went down to Guadalajara for his vacation during these last 2 weeks. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you kind of hear mumblings of Liga MX teams being interested. But like you said, Josh, the Galaxy have full control over his rights. He has a club option for next year, and that doesn't have to be, decided on in until 5 months from now.
Yeah, he was down there practicing his Spanish. He went down, a la izquierda, a la derecho. So, that was the one time I went down to Mexico. This was with my first wife. We went down to Mexico. We realized the second day we were there that her passport got stolen. It was not.
Oh my gosh.
It got stolen at the airport. I was like, oh wait, I remember the last time we saw it. Yeah, that was it. Whole deal. So we had to go find the U.S. consulate and stuff like that. So all of our taxis the entire time. By the way, my high school Spanish is horrible. I'm much better now because I'm around so many Spanish speakers with the Galaxy and everything like that, and at work, and so I'm better at understanding now. I was not good then. So we went. And, of course, all the taxi cab drivers that we had up to that time all spoke English. But then we got into and we needed to go this place. Nope, all Spanish. So that was it. That was my left and right the whole time. That was all I knew. All I could pull it out.
That's all you need to know.
That's all you need. Sometimes Mark Delgado, that's all he needs to know, too. He'll pass the ball to left, pass the ball to right. He's good to go. No, I think that, it comes down to money, as it always does. Whenever you look at Mark Delgado making, close to $900,000, it's not a small amount. And if there's an option in there, there's a good chance there's an escalator in that option that brings that up even higher, because usually whenever the options click in, they come in with a little pay increase for the players who are a little bit higher and stuff. So for me, it's going to be about Will Kuntz trying to figure out how that puzzle looks for next year and whether Mark Delgado fits in that puzzle, or whether there's a sale that can be made that nets the Galaxy a whole bunch of money that then allows them to do something else that they wanted to do. As of right now, I would much rather have Mark. I think that it's really hard to find guys like Mark Delgado. So, I think if you're looking at the PR side of things, you'd want to keep Mark Delgado because, as you said, he creates a lot of space, creates a lot of time, is always in the right position, especially on defense whenever he's able to track back and do things. He is one of the better players for the LA Galaxy. And if you've never been to a game and just decided to watch Mark Delgado for a while, I would suggest do it, because you will find that he moves a ton and covers a ton of ground. So for me, Mark Delgado stays with the Galaxy, but we'll sort of see that. I mean, it doesn't seem like he's going downhill, does he, Alex? I mean,
no, not at all. I think he's still very much playing at that level that we've seen over the last couple of years. I mean, look, he is a little dependent on the athleticism being able to cover a lot of ground, but I mean, you're not seeing any visible regression in that. You're not seeing him kind of be an injury-prone player. I mean, he's available. I mean, right, was it against FC Dallas, right? He wasn't supposed to play that game.
Yes.
And put out a great shift.
90 minutes.
Exactly. Covered tons of ground in that game, was very instrumental in that win. I mean, he's a very valuable player. And what's the phrase about you don't know what you have until it's gone? I feel like that's what we'll say once Mark Delgado leaves the LA Galaxy.
Very well could be that guy. Another guy who is possibly getting some Liga MX hits, though, Johnny Perez. We talked a little bit about him in before. Now, I will say this, that to my knowledge, the LA Galaxy have not been approached from Johnny Perez. But what are you hearing about Johnny Perez, Alex?
Yeah, so I've got some sources in Liga MX telling me that, look, Johnny Perez is a player that a lot of these teams have very high, on their list, on their players to keep an eye on. Mexican Youth International since the U16 level, U18, U20, U23. He's played at every level representing Mexico. So he's been on these clubs' radar for a while now, ever since coming up through those ranks. And look, they're seeing he's not getting a lot of playing time. They're seeing that, he's a player that has a lot of potential. I mean, you saw it against Chicago, how fast he is on the ball, how quick he can be. But he's not going to get a lot of playing time. The Galaxy recently invested almost nearly $20 million on Joseph Painsil and Gabriel Peck combined. So it seems very unlikely he's going to get a lot of playing time over those two. And Toluca has been one of the teams that's made approach to his camp, as well as Atletico San Luis. They're teams that have sold him on the project of, hey, come over here. You can get playing time. You can be in the eyes of the Mexican national team. I mean, look, Efrain Alvarez last year made the move to Cholos. In his first season there, for like 17 games, he already has the same amount of goals and assists as he did in his best season with the LA Galaxy. Yeah. And he was able to get back into the fold of the Mexican national team. He's out playing in France in some U23 tournament they do over there every year. So, look, if that's something that Johnny Perez sees, that he can get back on the national team radar, that he can get consistent playing time, that he can show his talent, then I think he might be swayed to move in that direction. But from what I've been told, it's just been teams kind of approaching his camp, selling him on that project. No official bids from clubs towards the LA Galaxy, but that's definitely something that Johnny Perez is hearing about, being sold on, hey, we can get you playing time, we can get you back into the fold of the national team, and you can really show off your talents here.
Yeah, I mean, grass is always greener on the other side type stuff. That's how you sell players. Come over here. I mean, it's how the LA Galaxy sell players. Hey, you're sitting on the bench. Come over here. You're going to get playing time. We're going to start you. Like, I see you as a starter. You're going to get your opportunity to start. You're going to get all these chances. You're going to be in front of national teams, the whole deal. I think the LA Galaxy actually really, really like Johnny Perez. And despite the fact that he's not getting a lot of playing time, which I think is going to increase, because I think with Daniel Aguirre gone, that they don't, even though Daniel Aguirre is a much different player than Johnny Perez is going to be inserted into positions to where Daniel Aguirre would have been. And so I think you're going to see Johnny Perez play a lot more minutes. I think that the Galaxy are going to want to shift some of their minutes off of guys like Joseph Painsil. And if they have a chance to do it, Johnny Perez is going to be that guy, right? Because Painsil has played a ton of minutes. He's played a ton. I think he's at 42-something games. Greg Vanny was saying before, because he was on the European calendar and came through, so he hasn't had that time off. So he's just been playing year round at this point, coming all the way through. So the fact that you want to get him some minutes off is important. And I think Johnny Perez is going to be that guy. So I think the playing time is going to increase. Now that's good for the LA Galaxy in two ways. One, you can help out Joseph Painsil, get some of those minutes off of his legs, and 2 is you can continue to showcase Johnny Perez, who is an up-and-comer, and the price could rise for Johnny Perez, and eventually maybe it might make some sense. The Galaxy, as you pointed out, spent $20 million. They're always going to have these big names, these big flashy guys in the offensive positions. Johnny Perez plays in that offensive position. He has a chance at being a really good backup. If for some reason he can make a giant leap, Alex, and he could get a starting spot or something like that, where the Galaxy could offload a designated player and go get like a DP striker, and then you have a homegrown that's in, it would be huge. It would be massive, but you're asking somebody like him to take a huge leap, probably in a relatively short amount of time in order to do that. So
that too, along with Painso, I mean, the team's spending, I think, his salary of Diego Fagundes is a bit over $1 million, right? So you've got that on the bench as well, and that makes it even harder for Perez to kind of break through and be able to kind of be the number one winger off the bench when you got a player like Fagundes, who's part of the 70 goal, 70 assist club. So yeah, that teams are monitoring that situation and saying that, look, if he's not content with that, if he wants to be able to get consistent playing time with the first team, in the first team environment, I mean, Liga Mx is the place to go.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. As we continue along Liga MX and talking about that, Leagues Cup now less than, I think, 50 days away. LA Galaxy made a post about it a little bit, but just right on the edge here, LA Galaxy getting ready for Leagues Cup. Of course, the most exciting part of Leagues Cup, and somebody got it right on the last podcast, was the ball stands, and I'm really excited about that ball stands part. So that's something to take a look at. Let's talk, Alex, as we're looking at all this. The crazy thing is that July 4th is like around the corner. It is so not that far away. And so the LA Galaxy obviously have a big game coming up against LAFC at the Rose Bowl on July 4th. I was able to talk to some people, have some sources indicating some interesting ticketing information for the LA Galaxy. Basically, right now, there is a good likelihood that the Galaxy sections will be sold out. So if you decided to wait to get your ticket, I would suggest you don't wait to get your ticket anymore. It seems like they are going to sell out. And if you remember, the stadium is split up into 40% basically LA Galaxy fans, roughly 40% LAFC fans, and then there's like a 10% and 10% neutral in between, right? So 20% in there, that gets your 100%. The Galaxy supporter sections, those sections that are labeled for the LA Galaxy, have limited ticket availability. In fact, I was told extremely limited availability on tickets. So you want to do that. But not only that, the Galaxy, and let's flash back a year, shall we, Alex? Let's look back last year. The story last year was that there were going to be more LAFC fans than LA Galaxy fans, and there's going to be more black in the stadium than there was going to be white, right? Same colors, by the way, LA Galaxy encouraging everybody to wear white. But this was the narrative that played out, and maybe some of it was true. Maybe there were a lot of LAFC fans. They smelled blood in the water. The Galaxy were under a boycott at the time before everything had sort of trickled down. That boycott ended. The LA Galaxy get in there. There's white versus black inside the stadium, and white ended up prevailing in terms of on the field. But there was very much a narrative that, LAFC was going to outnumber LA Galaxy fans. As of right now, the LA Galaxy and the LA Galaxy fans are outselling LAFC by a ratio of 6-1. Wow. 6-1. All right. So I don't know. I was speculating. I was like, oh, maybe LAFC fans don't want to show up because they think that the Galaxy are going to beat LAFC. Maybe LAFC fans don't want to show up because they think they're helping the LA Galaxy by showing up to this. Maybe they don't want to go to the game because they are disappointed in how poorly their team has been playing because they're only in third right now. I have no idea what the reason is, but the LA Galaxy are 100% going to have more. There's going to be a lot more white right now than black if everything sort of stays the way that it is. 6-1 is a giant number whenever you look at that. So if you're an LA Galaxy fan, the real thing that you need to take away from this is get your tickets, because if you don't, you're not going to get a seat in there. You're not going to be in the LA Galaxy sections, and you're going to want to be in those LA Galaxy sections. I don't know what this means overall for the total amount of people that are coming, but I'm sure somebody could figure that out whenever you look at it. But I would be surprised if they're, butting up against a record again, but they very well could, and maybe there's a lot of late ticket sales. But right now, LA Galaxy outpacing LAFC on ticket sales 6-1. Crazy numbers.
That's insane, just thinking about it. I mean, look, last year, like you mentioned, Josh, right? The scenario wasn't very great for the LA Galaxy, but this one game last year was just something else. It was the atmosphere was amazing. It just felt like a brand new season had begun that day. I mean, the LA Galaxy stands were full. You had the flares, the fireworks, great win. You had your best players show up in that game. it was perfect. And there's no surprise to me that LA Galaxy fans want to be back at the Rose Bowl. They want to experience that again. It wasn't a great night for LAFC that day for sure, but I mean, LA Galaxy fans definitely are that were in attendance for that game are definitely still have memories of that match. I mean, I tell people, it's like, man, you guys should have been there. It was incredible. I've talked to other LA Galaxy fans as well. They've always mentioned that game as being, one of their best games they've attended in all time, right? And it was an incredible atmosphere. I mean, it's 4th of July. You get fireworks right afterwards. I mean, everybody that I've talked to that's been at that match that's one of their favorite matches of all time that they've been at. A game they will never forget. And I think the Galaxy have really made a special opportunity of just, maybe having this game every year now. I think it's been ingrained in the minds, the scenes afterwards of that game. We had the LA Galaxy players, out there chanting with the LA Galaxy fans as well. It was just a very special moment. Greg Vanney, I remember that post-game was all smiles. Everybody was in a good mood in that game.
Right.
Brings back a lot of good memories, and it's no surprise to me that the LA Galaxy fans, the one with those good memories, want to go back there more than LAFC fans.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. Let's get to some of the standings. That was your update on the Rose Bowl. So, again, your call to action here is to get your tickets if you haven't already, because they're going to go away. And I will remind everybody, white is the color that LA Galaxy fans are wearing. It will be good versus evil, as normally it is. Let's get to some of the standings here. Eastern Conference, as we looked, it hasn't changed much, but there was a game that got played, so I don't even know if it changed the standings, because God only knows. Nobody paid any attention to any of those games that got played. There's a Friday night game, which, by the way, there should be more Friday night games. 100% in on the Friday night games. There's a Friday night game coming up if you want to watch that. I honestly forget who's playing, but I remembered it was on Friday night.
I think it's Columbus in New York.
It's a good game. It's a good game to watch. So 100% a Friday night game. As we look, standings, Miami in that 35-point range, Cincinnati at 33, New York City at 29. New York City coming in to play the LA Galaxy here very shortly. This is the midweek matchup against New York City FC. This will be a tough game for the LA Galaxy, one of their toughest at home that they played this year. New York Red Bulls right below them. Then it's Charlotte, Toronto, and Columbus. And then if you look for the last playoff spots, it's Philadelphia and Nashville. And then DC is out, Orlando's out, Montreal, Atlanta, Chicago, and New England. That's where we sit in the Eastern Conference. Let's head on over to the Western Conference, where it's Real Salt Lake with 33 points, just 2 points back from Miami. You have LAFC at 30 points. You have Minnesota at 29 and the LA Galaxy at 28. Vancouver, 3 points back of the LA Galaxy at 25. And then it's Austin, Houston, Colorado, and Portland. That wraps it up. Teams that are on the outside looking in right now, surprisingly Seattle, surprisingly St. Louis. I don't know about KC, but they usually have a pretty good second half to the season, so let's watch that start against the LA Galaxy, I'm sure, this weekend. Sporting Kansas City there, Dallas, and then San Jose. That's where we sit on the Western Conference. Supporter Shield is Miami. The LA Galaxy currently sitting in 8th in that Supporter Shield race. So that's where we sit in terms of the standings. Let's look real quick, though, at the LA Galaxy schedule that's coming up. And as we said, Sporting Kansas City coming up on Saturday. Then it's a Wednesday night game against New York City at home. So again, home. Galaxy need to take advantage of their home games. You have 2 home games for the LA Galaxy. You get New York City flying all the way across the country in order to sit down on a Wednesday night. That should be a advantage LA Galaxy. Then it's away to Real Salt Lake. So tough week whenever you look at it. You have Kansas City, which is the easy game, then 2 difficult games with New York City and Real Salt Lake, and then it's away to San Jose up top. So that one will be an interesting one to watch. Again, I'm just trying to get you in this. July 31st is when Leagues Cup starts. The LA Galaxy will go up to San Jose to play that game, right? Then there's Leagues Cup against Chivas, and then we'll see where the Galaxy go from there, but there's not another league game until 8/24. There are only 8 league games whenever we get back from Leagues Cup. So that's where we're sitting. Alex, schedule-wise, does it feel like everything's going to get crammed in here at the end and somehow we're going to play 17 games? This is going to go really fast, right?
Yeah, it's going to go insanely fast. I mean, this first half of the season, in my opinion, has been really fast. It feels like we're just 10 games into the year, but no, we're like halfway through the year, which is really weird. But I mean, hey, we've seen a lot of changes within this club, within the organization, and I mean, it's not surprising to kind of feel that way. But yeah, Josh, I think really interesting to see kind of just the timing of Leagues Cup. Obviously, they try to do it after Copa America, after all these international tournaments because of Messi, and that's the only reason why. But yeah, I mean, look, the later half, the home stretch is going to become quick and fast, and I think the LA Galaxy are going to want to get as much momentum as they can in those final games heading into the MLS Cup playoffs. I mean, they're going to maybe, I don't know, I don't think it will ever happen, win 3 games in a row. I don't know. I've had this meme like just sitting in there in the vault, just waiting to get released once it happens for the LA Galaxy. I don't think it'll ever see the light of day.
No.
But hey, I have hope it might.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I just don't know that it's probable right now, especially with how the 3 games usually approach for the Galaxy, which is like they have 2 home games, but then they have a away game, and it's always tough to win games on the road, and then there's travel involved and everything else that's going on. So we'll see how that one goes. This game coming up this weekend is Pride Night. Robbie Rogers will be honored and celebrated there with a bobblehead. I talked to Kevin Baxter, who said he had an excellent chat with Robbie Rogers today. Said Robbie's really excited about going. I don't know the specifics of the chat. Kevin will be able to share it with us on Monday. But you'll absolutely want to be there. And happy Pride to all those that are celebrating. I have members in my family who are LGBTQ+, and so I'm always happy to fly the rainbow flag and support my friends and my family whenever it comes up. So I'm looking forward to that. Also this weekend, Pups at the Pitch, man. They got rainbows and dogs. It's gonna be a great day. Everybody should be there, but Pups at the Pitch coming up as well. Let's start to get ready for this. 7:30 p.m. is your game time. LA Galaxy versus Kansas City. This game will kick off at 7:40 on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. Alex, we've looked at Sporting Kansas City. We know they're at the bottom of the Western Conference. We know that they've been struggling. We know that Peter Vermees is on the hot seat, even though he's probably going to be the one that has to pull his own number whenever it goes. They have some good players. We know that as well. What are we thinking just in general terms of the Sporting Kansas City game?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a much different scenario for both teams compared to the reverse fixture, right, where the Galaxy come from behind and get that victory on the road. I think right now we've seen the Galaxy become an established good team at home. They are always playing on the front foot at home. And I think they always want to attack their opponents quickly, get on the scoreboard first. Obviously, we know the stats are really good whenever they do that. And I think right now Kansas City's still trying to figure some things out. I mean, they did beat Seattle, but I mean that was during the midweek matches or whatever during the international break that nobody really cares about.
And there was a red card in it as well, so there was a double yellow in that second half that led to them. It was 1-1 whenever the red card came down with about 20 minutes left in that game. So the crazy thing for me in Sporting Kansas City, 0.8 expected goals, 0.8 expected goals, 1.2 expected goals. They're just not a high-scoring team. They don't score a lot of goals. They tend to give up goals, which is the sign of a bad team, right? But I can never believe that Sporting Kansas City is a bad team. I look at these. I know Salawi, I think, got injured in the last game, so I don't know. There's enough time that he's probably okay and that he's probably back. But we're watching that. You have, Polito in there. You have Johnny Russell, who scored in that game. Tommy and Rodriguez. And then on the backside, with Melia and sort of what he does. This is not your parents' Sporting Kansas City team, right? They're missing some of that bite, really, that you would expect at defense. And I think that they're missing some bite in the midfield. This is one where the LA Galaxy really should take advantage for me. And if you look at it, I think the speed with Joseph Paintsel coming back, the speed with Gabriel Peck coming back, the Galaxy's ability to play in behind, that's really what hurt Sporting Kansas City in a lot of these. That's what I saw.
Yeah, and then you're having a motivated LA Galaxy as well, right? After losing in Chicago, I was arguably one of their worst performances of the year. I think they want to get out there, want to score some goals, want to look dangerous, want to be able to kill teams off. I mean, they've never been able to do that at home. All of their games at home have been or their wins have been by the margin of one goal. They haven't necessarily had a very convincing home win, in my opinion, where they're dominating by 2-3 goals, where they have full control of the game for 90 minutes. This is your perfect opportunity to do that against SKC. Like you mentioned, Josh, not a very goal dangerous team. Injuries have kind of had players be in and out of the squad, so they've never been able to play their best 11. But look, if you're Greg Vanney and you want to elevate to become a great team in this MLS season, you got to be able to win convincingly at home. And I don't think we've had a convincing LA Galaxy win at home this season yet. Yeah. Maybe this game against Sporting Kansas City gives you that opportunity, but you got to be able to at least take care of these teams below you. And I think if you want the Galaxy to continue to take those next step forwards, we've got to see that this weekend.
Yeah, it is. By the way, Destructive Collector, Sophie, he mentioned Sophie was right on asking Greg Vanney about 3 points being a must. I think Greg answered that. I think Sophie wouldn't mind me saying this. I think it's a BS question. I just do. It's like, they want to win every home game. That's what he's going to say. It's not a must. I hate to break it to you. They could lose the next 2 games. And what's going to happen? Not much. They can go out and win games on the road. None of this stuff is must win. You guys really, I feel like there's an obsession with saying must win. Like everybody wants to be first to say, is this a must win game? Must wins are mathematical. It'll make your life a lot easier if you just play that game, which means the Galaxy could go through a whole season, never have a must win game. That'd be great until you get into the playoffs, right? That type of thing. Stop worrying about that. I think the more important thing to worry about is the LA Galaxy need to pick up points from these games. They should beat Sporting Kansas City. I'm not giving them a pass. I think that if they lose to Sporting Kansas City at home, it would be a massive drop of points. It is. But is it you have to get through? No, you don't. But you then have New York City coming in, who's a very good team, who's definitely capable of stealing 3 points from you as they travel all the way across the country. So you need to be careful of that. And then all of a sudden your 9-point weekend, which was never going to be a 9-point week because you're playing RSL away, but your 9-point week is 0 points because you lost at home to Sporting Kansas City. New York City stole a late goal from you and you lost at home against them, and then you traveled all the way to RSL trying to get points back, and you didn't have the stamina to last in the altitude in whatever. I don't know what the weather is out there. It could be hot, it could be cold, God only knows, right? But you didn't have the ability to go in there and really put your best foot forward against Real Salt Lake. That's more important, is understanding the strain that you're going to put on yourself if you don't beat Sporting Kansas City. You beat Sporting Kansas City, things get a lot easier for you. The schedule opens up for you a little bit, which is, okay, now you had that one win. Now we can focus on beating New York City at home. Then we don't have to worry about that RSL game as much. And I know people are like, of course you have to worry about it. No, you don't. You could literally be like, okay, we'll rotate in that RSL game and we'll see how it goes, that type of thing. So for me, get away from the must-win mentality. Like, these games are must-win. There is no such thing unless there's a mathematical elimination happening. Then those are must-win. If you go away
nobody ever remembers a regular season game in June.
Yeah, 100%. But I mean, yes, every point counts. It always does. I was watching the U.S. Open today, and my dad and I were talking. I don't know if any of you are golfers, but we watch the U.S. Open on our TVs at the office whenever it comes up because it's our favorite tournament, whole deal. My dad was actually a caddy at Oakmont back in the day, so, we have that. And so we've gone to a couple different U.S. Opens and watched. But we're watching. It's the same thing in golf, which is like you can't win the tournament on the first day, but you can lose it. It's the same thing. It's like, you can't win this week by beating Sporting Kansas City. You can't make it a great week by just beating Sporting Kansas City, but you can make it a really bad week by losing to Sporting Kansas City. That has the ability to do that from the very beginning. So, that's sort of what I think. I think the LA Galaxy here are coming in. Now, I have big questions, Alex, about Joseph Paintsill, because we haven't seen him play in 3 or 4 games, right? He hasn't been with the LA Galaxy. Gabriel Peck has been playing in Joseph Paintsill's position. So do they go back now? And will Gabriel Peck still be a very good target on the left-hand side if you want Joseph Paintsill on the right-hand side? Is there some struggle to get those guys back and working on the same page?
Yeah, that's my thing to watch in this game. Just how does Manny utilize Peck and Paintsill together again? And look, Paintsill before his injury really wasn't doing too well. I think the game against RSL, he had an XG of, 1.4, didn't score a goal that game, right? That was the one game where, he was subbed off and went straight to the locker room. Minnesota game didn't do much, but again, that's the game he got hurt. So yeah, it's interesting to see how Paintsill is going to look in this game. Is he going to play right wing? I mean, we've seen him be at his best at the right wing, but Gabriel Peck has looked much more influential playing on that right wing, getting a lot more involved in the play, right? Greg Vanny's mentioned a lot of times that, the Galaxy deliberately play a lot more on that right side compared to that left.
Yeah. And
deliberately.
Deliberately, well, and then you also watch Ricky Puig. Why does that happen? It's because where Ricky is positioned, right? Because he likes to spin into that little left center side, and then so whenever it's left center, he doesn't have as many angles to play down the left side as he does to play across the right side, right? Makes perfect sense whenever you watch sort of thing. So it's about getting Ricky Puig more into the center of the field if he wants to distribute to the left-hand side. And how do you do that? Now, injury updates. Let's go. Joseph Paintsill back, ready to go. Greg Vanny said he trained a lot of last week, but was sort of like in and out, and then trained all of this week. He's good, 100%. I imagine he starts. There shouldn't be any reason why he wouldn't. The guy who's not back, who is question mark, and it doesn't sound like he's going to play, is Gaston Brugman. Still having some problems with the knee. It's a bone bruise, even though I think we were told it was like nerve issues at one point too.
Yeah, at first Greg mentioned it was nerve issues, but now I think, he gave us a couple of days later that it was a bone bruise. And again, it's in that same region where he had his torn meniscus last year.
Yeah. So Gaston Brugman not back, which means that, you could see a combination of Delgado in there. You could see a combination of Fagundes in there. You could see a combination of Cerrillo in there, right? So there's
blonde Cerrillo now.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's blonde now. So
he's blonde. He went blonde too. What is going on? Do blondes have more fun, Alex? Do I need to dye my hair blonde? I don't understand this craze that is sweeping the nation, or just most of the LA Galaxy.
Yeah, I think most of the LA Galaxy. I mean, blonde's worked for Ricky Puig. Scored 3 goals in 3 games. He's been blonde. I mean, maybe Edwin Cerrillo has some great performances down the stretch. You never know.
Do you think Diego Fagundes is like making money on the side right now?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay, cool. It's
For
just
sure.
like everybody's like, hey, like what time can I get in? And he's like, let me talk to my wife, and maybe we can pencil you in. Let's see if we can get you in there. Cerrillo in. I think that's the more likely start right there is going to be Puig, Delgado, and Cerrillo. That seems to be sort of which way the LA Galaxy go. So we'll watch that and see how that develops. Again, really interested in Joseph Paintsill. I want to see what happens because he struggled a little bit there at the end. Wasn't getting involved as much. Was getting frustrated. The key both for him and Peck is to give him the ball in space and let those guys run into it. And if the Galaxy don't do that, especially Ricky Puig, and Ricky is the one who has to be able to pull the string and make it happen. If Ricky can't do that, then the Galaxy will not have those guys involved, and that's where the offense goes to die. Now they've gone a little more defensive, Alex. We've seen it. We've seen them be a little more careful in their positioning and how they go. Greg Vanney probably likes it. I like it too, but you're not seeing just like the routes that the Galaxy were throwing early on. Maybe that's an adjustment by other teams, although I don't think you can adjust to speed. There's only so much you can do. And maybe that's been a lack of the LA Galaxy sort of having those killer passes, killer instincts, being in the right space at the right time. So that's, for me, looking at the Galaxy, the key to success here is getting Peck and Paintsill on the ball, moving forward into the box. It's simple. I mean, it gets complicated on how you want to make that happen, Alex, but that's the ultimate goal that you want to have happen in here. And then whenever you play them in, then that opens up stuff for Joveljic. Joveljic needs to come back and play. He needs to start these games. The Miguel Berry experiment is getting maddening. And I from everything I've heard, the Galaxy are not searching for a striker right now. And that's probably not going to be in the cards this year, right? The Galaxy are literally taking the piggy bank and dumping it upside down in order to try to entice somebody like Marco Reus, which again, I think on Monday we told you is far from guaranteed. So that is one that may not happen. I know everybody was like, oh, it's happening, here it comes. Pump the brakes. The Galaxy as an organization as a whole also have a mindset of it's not done until it's done, and then then it's not done. So it's one of those things to sort of look at and just understand the position the Galaxy are in. They'll have backup plans if Royce doesn't come, but their target is Marco Reus. That's what they want to have happen, and that's what they want to try to do. So that's what they're going after. But all of that effort right now is to try to get Marco Reus into the LA Galaxy. So.
Yeah, and I mean, if Royce comes, I feel like he's going to play more of a forward position than he is a midfield position. So he would kind of fit that role as well.
Well, whenever you look at what Brugman not being as resilient as maybe the LA Galaxy would hope after his injury and missing some games now and doing some stuff, it's a good position for Royce to slide into. So there's the ability to split minutes with Brugman and Royce, and then also pushing Royce higher up into the field where you could maybe even sub him as a false 9 for Joveljic and all that stuff. We haven't seen Diego Fagundes in that 9 spot either, and I'm waiting for that to happen, even as he subs for the other wingers whenever it comes back. But one of the best things the Galaxy have this year for me, Alex, is seeing somebody like Diego Fagundes who's able to come off the bench, and that's depth. That's like having real depth at a position and bringing somebody in who can still make a difference and still change things. So we'll sort of see. Are you ready for predictions on the Sporting Kansas City side? Excuse me. Let me get to D ratings first. Let's just do this. Listen, it's very lopsided, which is never good. The Galaxy have a 60.1% chance of winning. According to D ratings, there's a 21.8% chance of a draw, and Sporting Kansas City only has an 18.1% chance of winning that game. Right now, the expected or projected goals is 0.95, under 1 for Sporting Kansas City and almost 2 for the LA Galaxy. So if you're reading this, they're saying the Galaxy win this game 2-1. What say you, Mr. Alex, about this game? Is it an easy one? Is it a tough one? Is it going to be a little scary? How do you look at it?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier, right? Galaxy haven't had a convincing home win yet, and I think that's going to continue. I feel like this is going to be a game where they win by 1 goal. I think that SKC is going to have their moments because the LA Galaxy defense still very much suspect. And I think, there'll be moments where, you're like, oh, man, I'm lucky that didn't go in. So I'm going to go 2-1 win for the LA Galaxy. Very basic score, but I feel like the Galaxy, they find out ways to get results at home. Not the best results or most convincing, but they do it. And I think they're going to do it again.
I'm going to go 2-0 for the Galaxy. And this is what I think. yes, there's going to be moments where you're looking at Sporting Kansas City and going, man, they should have scored there. But if you watch some of their games, that's basically how they play. They miss a lot of chances where you're like, oh, man, they probably should have scored there. I think the travel is going to, it's never easy. It'll be easier for them only because, they haven't played in a little while. So they're also coming off their break. They're coming into this, and you're sort of like, okay, let's watch this game. Let's see how this game sort of goes through. And then, Sporting Kansas City probably has more focus on other games than just this Galaxy game. But they get to give it all. There's no excuse for people. We talk so much about, like, how tired people get and all that stuff. This is the game where there's no excuse. Like, you had a whole week off. Like, there's a weekend off, like the whole deal. Everybody's ready to go. So you have your full complement of players. There's nobody. You're not going to save anybody. Saving people doesn't help you. But really, for the Galaxy, if they want to be a better team, winning a game 2-0, being able to sub guys out in the second half with about 20 minutes to go and being up 2-0 will be a huge thing whenever you're playing New York City on Wednesday night. So those are the things I've talked about a bunch. The Galaxy just can't. The Western Conference is sort of built this way where everybody's really easy, and you're not going to just be able to run against everybody or run away with things. But for me, I think the Galaxy have a chance to win this game 2-0, and they can do it convincingly. I would love to see 2 first-half goals for the LA Galaxy. Just get them up there and make Sporting Kansas City chase the game for the rest of the game. And the Galaxy are really, really good at possession and passing and keeping the ball away from guys. So that would sort of be one of those things that I would pay attention to. Is there anybody on the? To me, it's always Johnny Russell. But is there anybody on that Sporting Kansas City team that, like, you hear the name, you're like, oh man, that's gonna be that's never easy.
Yeah, I mean, Johnny Russell has always been that guy that's given the LA Galaxy problems. Alan Pulido's had a really rough start of the season, but I mean, you always gotta, he's great at playmaking as well as being a forward, kind of a good all-around striker that you want on your team. So I think he can be a guy that can cause some damage. But yeah, I mean, really the SKC attack just hasn't been very lethal, hasn't created much. In past years, yeah, you would be scared, but right now their knives are not as sharp when it comes to just how lethal Kansas City can be in the attack.
Yep, you can see it. I'm just looking at shots and everything else. Galaxy have more shots. They have more shots on goal on average. Passing accuracy usually is pretty much always in the LA Galaxy's favor. Corners in the LA Galaxy's favor. Offsides, who cares? Just other stuff. Again, this feels like a game that is heavily weighted, as D ratings has said, towards the LA Galaxy, and I think that's what we'll see. Galaxy facing off against Sporting Kansas City, 7:30 p.m. is going to be your TV start time. 7:40 p.m. is going to be your kickoff time. I was told that let's see if I can find my little notes here about some of the game programming. But the Footpool guys, Footpool will be there. So if you were thinking about, they reached out to me on Instagram and said, hey, we're going to be there. So if you wanted to play some football, they are going to have one Footpool court at the Galaxy Soccer Fest. So make sure you get in there. You can play that.
That's always fun.
And do that. Yeah, always visit our friends at AFJA. I don't know if you see my little guy, but he has a hat on. And this is the first time I had it. He's got his little papusa hat on. You know what? I'll put my papusa hat on too.
There you go.
Okay, good. Now we're good. Well, now we know it's good. But go visit the AFJA guys and support them as best you can. It's never easy being inside the stadium and trying to deal with all of the red tape that is going on, and those guys continue to manage it. Steve continues to manage it and do all that great stuff, and it's for a great cause, and you see the results, which is always fun for me. So I'm always 100% an AFJA guy, so make sure you check that out. I should be there on halftime. Just a shout out from my side, if you have nothing to do on Saturday morning or Sunday morning, head on out to the train club, because we're doing free train rides this weekend in Costa Mesa at Fairview Park. That's ocmetrains.org. I'll be out there in my engineer outfit with my little hat on, like my handkerchief there, and climbing under engines and all sorts of fun stuff. So hopefully we'll see you out there, and then I'll be busting up the freeway in order to get to the game on time. So I will be there, and I should see everybody at halftime. All right. Anything else, Alex, that you want to get to?
No, I think we're all good. I think we've covered this game, talked about the LA Galaxy's first half of the year, and right now, second half of the season begins. So, I mean, got to be excited. Everyone's refreshed. I think everyone's motivated after the loss in Chicago. So, I think everyone's expecting a good LA Galaxy performance on Saturday. Yeah,
it's going to be a lot of fun. Good to see it. All right, Alex, why don't you tell people where to find you, and then we'll go.
Yeah, so you can find my articles at thegalactictribune.org. That's my Substack. And you can find my news, opinions, everything else on X at ALXR Ruiz 15. Great follow, I think, good stats, good stuff you need to know about the LA Galaxy on there.
Real quick, a super chat from Lasso's Optimism. Evening, gents. Hoping we'd hear some transfer news, but trying to be patient, not become impatient. Settle for a W Saturday. Go G's. That's from Lasso, so we appreciate that. Thank you, Lasso. If you're looking for me on Twitter and X, it's at Guesman, at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com, YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple iTunes, all those fun places. Spotify is where you can find the podcast. Type in Corner of the Galaxy and tell your friends. Tell your friends. Be nice and come visit me at the Train Club. All right. For Mr. Alex El Nino Ruiz, I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening. You've been watching our little Corner of the Galaxy. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening. We ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye.